Hey guys, I want to start first and foremost by saying that my heart goes out to absolutely everybody that's been impacted by the recent flood events. This time around I was super fortunate and managed to avoid a direct hit. I do say this time around because back in 2011 I was renting a place at South Brisbane and the bottom two levels or few levels of that unit complex went under. So I was surrounded by water back then and the damage and the carnage was highly visible to me. Like I said, this time around I've been more fortunate, but like pretty much every single person out there in Brisbane, I do have family and friends that were directly impacted. Whether it's at the lower end of the spectrum, like my mum at Chapel Hill, who had a few leaks into some of her rooms, or the other end of the spectrum, like my stepbrothers at Taringa, their rental unit went completely under. From what I've heard, the stench of sewerage just wafting through that area is intense because one of the local sewage pump stations actually overflowed. It's just not pretty out there. From all accounts, the water just came up so quickly, and it came up in areas where people never expected to see it. So like I said, I do feel for you guys out there. What are we going to talk about today? Well, quite obviously, it's going to be flooding. It's just so topical at the moment, and it'd kind of feel disrespectful and disconnected if I was going to talk about any other topic in this moment. Now, a lot of what I do want to talk about though, I feel like it's just too soon to talk about. Like things like, will council increase their flood levels, or how do we plan for this in the future? I think people are still caught up in the thick of it. We've got to let the dust, or in this case, mud, settle before we get into some of those nitty-gritty topics, because I don't think people are in a place where they're willing or ready to absorb the information. That being said, there is one topic that I'm dying to talk about, because I feel like everyone out there is kind of dancing around it and no one's really talking about it. So what's the question? Well, quite simply, why is this flood event so different to any other, if I get my words out, flood events that we've had in recent years? So I'm talking 1974 and 2011 floods. From my perspective, and I am going to emphasize this, I'm talking from a town planning perspective. I am not a hydraulic engineer. I don't for 1 second pretend to be an expert in this field, but from a town planner's perspective, I think there's probably 3 key reasons why this flood event was so different to those other 2 more recent flood events. First and foremost, you need to understand that within the town planning world, there is 4 different types of flooding. So under the flood overlay, we've got overland flow flooding, then we've got creek and waterway flooding, and then we've got Brisbane River flooding. Under the coastal hazard overlay, which sits a bit off to the side, we've got storm tide or storm surge flooding. Each one of those is very different water sources. Now, back in 1974 and 2011, those flood events were primarily Brisbane River flood events. So the water was falling outside of the Brisbane local government area predominantly, and it was coming together, the catchment was coming together at the upper reaches of the Brisbane River and flowing down through our city. This time around, it was 3 different flood events in quick succession. So we had overland flow, quickly followed by creek waterway, quickly followed by Brisbane River. So the water was falling more locally here, coming down onto the individual properties. The water was just flowing at volumes we haven't seen ever, I wouldn't say ever, in our living history. I think I've heard people say we had 2/3 of our annual rainfall in 2 days, or more than Sydney or Melbourne's annual rainfall in 2 days. We had a bucket load of water falling onto individual properties. Once it got down onto those individual properties, it ran into little localized channels called overland flow paths. Again, the volume of water, these overland flow paths have never handled that volume of water before. So they exploded and their banks exploded and the water ran off into individual properties. From there, it then went down into the creeks and waterways. So all these overland flow paths came together in the creek and waterway. Again, volume of water, creek and waterway could not handle it, so they burst their banks, and all of those properties in certain areas like Ashgrove, Red Hill, Paddington, all of those properties along the creeks and waterways in that location, they got inundated by water. Then from there, the creeks and waterways flowed down into the Brisbane River, and again, the Brisbane River couldn't handle the volume of water, so it broke its banks and all of the low-lying properties around it went under. So like I said, first reason is different types of flooding. 1974, 2011 was one type of flooding, Brisbane River flooding. 2022, feels weird saying it now, but 2022, that was one which was 3 different types of flooding in quick succession, totally different. Now, the second point I want to make here is the volume of water was different. So, and I'm going to really simplify this here. Back in 2011, and I presume 1974, all the rain was falling outside of the Brisbane local government area. I'm going to say it was falling at a medium sort of level. But medium rainfall over a massive area coming together in the upper reaches of Brisbane River equals a bucket load of water. This time around, it was higher intensity in terms of rainfall, but it was falling in a much smaller area. It was falling here within Brisbane. So when that water comes together, yes, on the individual properties, it's a lot more water, but cumulatively, it's not quite as bad. Last but not least, we need to look at where that water entered the Brisbane River. So again, going back to 1974 and 2011, that water was entering at the upper reaches of the Brisbane River and flowing down through our city. This time around, it was predominantly entering, yes, there was definitely some upstream, but it was also entering at each individual creek and waterway point along the Brisbane River. So these three factors in combination are the reason why this flood event was so different and why you will hear people talking about it in different ways. So those people in the upper reaches of the Brisbane River, they might sit there and go, oh, that wasn't as, I was about to say bad. As someone said the other day, whether you've got 1 metre of water through your house or 2 metres of water through your house, it doesn't make a difference. It's equally as bad. Your house is gone. So let's rephrase that and say as high. So those people in the upper reaches of the Brisbane River, they may say it was not as high as 2011. However, those people on the localised sort of overland flow paths or the creek and waterways, they are going to be sitting there right now going, I've never seen anything like this. This was so much worse than the January 2011 or 1974 flood event. Like I said, 3 different reasons coming together. Now, the moral of the story, or the point I want to get across in today's video, is you need to take note of the fact that each and every flood event will be totally different. Yes, 74 and 2011 were similar, but they were still different flood events. But what we've noticed from this flood event is those 3 factors, so the flood type, the volume of water locations that's falling, and therefore the location that enters the Brisbane River is going to dictate what impacts we see on the land. So please keep that in mind, that we are going to see different flood events in the future. I think that covers off everything I want to talk about. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.